everybody.
What up, what up?
It's our second Monday motivational chat. We are so excited and looking forward to this one.
Yes, for sure. Janice and I met, oh my gosh, I don't even know when we met, but it was so crazy. It was late. I was working. We were at a place called the Dream Building, and somehow we just connected instantly on so many levels, and through the life's journeys we have stayed connected, and I'm so excited to share her story and her journey with everyone. So we want to recap from last week.
Mm-hmm.
Last week was our first Monday Motivation Chat. We launched it with Pat, the founder, producer, and host of Pat TV, where he talks about people in the community, people, doing their thing, whether it's with music, whether it's with philanthropy, just getting people's stories out similar to what we're doing, just in a different way. Everybody has their way of sharing stories and getting the message across of we all just gotta do better and be better. What else?
Yeah, he preached a lot about he likes to do a lot of his work through comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And basically just kind of living pain through comedy in a way of just kind of like utilizing it as an outlet, which is very interesting. There's a lot of people go to comedy shows, but they don't really know what's going on underneath the surface, you know. So definitely seeing it from his perspective was amazing. So that was our first Monday motivation chat.
Yeah. Monday motivation chat. Hey G. Hey Nisha.
Hey, what's going
on? So while we wait for our guest host to join us, we just want to give a little bit about our vision for Monday motivation chats. Similar to how Pat shared his story last week, there's just so many people that have stories, that have journeys to share, that have testimonies of obstacles that they've overcome, and we all can learn from those stories, from those journeys, from the obstacles that were overcome, the way in which people overcome obstacles, from all different walks of life, different cultures, different backgrounds. And our goal is to just make this a platform, make this a weekly thing where whoever joins us can pull some inspiration from it, to either feel like I'm not alone, I'm not the only one, to feel motivated to then go kill the day on Tuesday by the person's story, to be like, if they could do it, I could do it too. If they got through that, then I can keep pushing. There's just so many layers, and in the never-ending world of social media, we just want to be a light. We just want to be the compass that perfection doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the glimpses of edited videos and edited photographs are just a glimpse of a person's life, and nothing is perfect. The journey from the beginning of having an idea to the execution, and then seeing that idea flourish, there are obstacles, there are hardships, there are times where you want to give up, and we just want to share all of those stories. And it's not necessarily everyone on here won't just be an entrepreneur. There are people that are doing amazing things in the community, whether it's just being an advocate on your block, whether it's just being a badass mom or dad, or whatever it is that you're doing. Like, we want to share so many stories, and let Monday motivation change how people feel about Mondays too. Like, people dread Mondays and then live for Fridays. Like, we just want this to be that spark, so that you can kill the day the rest of the week.
Yeah, exactly. So without further ado, our guest has joined us. So we'll be introducing Cheney University alumni, CEO of Instead Image Consulting, model, speaker, Yanez Perez, let's get you in here.
Your arms are definitely longer than mine.
What?
You gotta do the.
This right here?
Yep. Yeah, I'm so excited.
There she goes. There she goes.
Happy belated birthday. It's Virgo season.
Hey. It's so weird because I feel like I grew up alongside of you guys. So
Yeah,
it's
for
just
sure.
we're kind of adults now.
I know. We're grown-ups. What the heck?
So for everyone tuning in, like we were both you graduated college, right? Like when I met you, or we were both like in that college, like
Yes.
are we?
Grown-ups yet? We thought we knew what we were doing.
But we figured it out. It's weird. Here we are.
Yes. Yes. We're still figuring it out.
Yeah, it's so hard.
Does everybody ever have it fully figured out?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know. New chapters, new lessons, right?
They're lying. If they say they have it all figured out, they're lying.
Right. They on some shit.
Even our trying to figure it out.
Yes, for sure. So we're gonna start.
So how you been? How's everything going? How's how the all right, so I feel like there's a lot that we need to talk about, but we can I guess kind of go step backwards. So it was just your birthday, right? And on your birthday you released your first ever photo book.
Yeah, it was insane. So, so I kind of went through a time period where, so I don't know, I guess you guys can relate too, but like a lot of artists have this thing where like we're not sure if we should like expose what our creativity is to the public. Like it's kind of that dire hardship of like, is this for me personally or is this something to share with everyone else? So it actually took me a year to release that book because it was something that I wasn't sure if it was something I experienced for just me personally or something that I should share with other people. Mm-hmm. And I just kept getting confirmation after confirmation about like, this is something you should share with other people because the message behind it was like something similar that happened in the Bible where like I actually felt like I experienced the resurrection in itself, where I went through a stage of my life which I would consider like the crucifixion, where like everything was against me, right? Like all I want to do is exist, and everything felt like it was coming against me, and so I felt like I actually experienced the resurrection, and that photographer captured it. He captured the of that moment. Like the pictures are, it's not just like a girl in front of the camera like, hey, look, I'm cute. It was like more like he was capturing the essence of my being, right? So I released it thinking like, oh, you know, like my family in New York will buy it. My grandmom in PR, like, you know, my cousins around the corner. But the feedback was so insane that I'm still trying to catch up with the orders, right? Like I'm still like, it's just so much.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's so awesome. And you know what's crazy? When we met, we were both experiencing confirmations for like this new chapter. We were tiptoeing into something new, but we weren't sure. And literally the night we met, we were talking about all of the confirmation that we were receiving to just move forward, like to just step into it. That's so crazy.
Yeah, I kind of shared a little bit about it as an introduction this past weekend. Was like most people that I have aligned myself with in the last 10 to 15 years have been people that God has sent to me, like including you, Julie. Like we know this. Like the first time we met, it wasn't normal, right? Like like if there was a stenographer in the room, they'd be like, okay, this is really interesting. Like
right. Right.
This thing you don't find in a book. It was like, you know, from the moment we started speaking, it was like, okay, here's confirmation over and over again. And it was literally the world, our beings being pushed into the next season of our lives. So that's exactly what happened with the book. It was like I was pushed into bringing it forward, which I would have never done, but I just felt like there was confirmation after confirmation after confirmation about bringing it forth. So.
Yeah. I love it. The little snippets that you've shared, I absolutely love it, love it, love it. There's just this sense of confidence, this sense of renewal that I sense, just like you said, kind of like the crucifixion and being rebirthed. Like you can feel it through the pictures.
Yeah, it's insane too because we live in a society of smut where like sexuality for women can be smutted in so many ways and it's not really about it being smutted. So I guess that was the thing that was holding me back a little bit because although I've like been modeling for so long, I didn't want for it to be like something where I was using for potential gain but smutting who I was as a person. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, yes, completely. Yeah, love it. So tell us, I guess, how did Instead even become an idea?
So I was in my freshman year of college, and I I was like watching television. I think I was watching television, and I was just at a point in my life like I was transitioning. It's probably around the same time that I met you, and I knew I needed to be an entrepreneur, right? Because like with my background, like no one can really tell me what to do, right? Like I knew I had to be a boss. I just was so scared because I was so young. I'm like, how am I going to be a boss this young? Like I don't know what to do, right? So I was like, God, if this is what you want me to do, like you need to show me. Because although I'm bossy in like entrepreneurship, I'm also bossy when it comes to God. Like I'm a total brat. So I'm like, you need to tell me. I'm like, you need to tell me what this is all about because I'm here. There's a lot of things going on. I can't figure it out. Like you need to confirm with me what it is that you want me to do for you. So then, over a time period, I started to get like signs. I know this sounds really strange, but for people who get it, like I just started to get like signs. I was watching a television show and they started speaking about image consulting, and it was like what I was already doing, but in a more corporate type of thing. So it's what I've already experienced as well. So it was like bringing the two together and meshing them. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then I just remember like the name developing, and the definition of the name instead is the alternative to, which is what I was doing. But I didn't want to do anything that was like, for example, that was done before or that um, just was done before or that, wasn't helping people. Like, I feel like I would have my life if I was like not helping anyone. So like to be an image consultant, I'm basically whether it's for companies or individuals, I'm bringing the beauty out in them, and that was like so appealing to me. I was like, wow, God, like yeah, I can see me doing that, like So I started doing my research, and it fit everything I had already been educated on. It was so weird, right? Because like I had this long career in modeling and the fashion world, but like at some point, like that no longer is feasible, right? Like whether it's through creativity or money, whatever, to each his own. But like for me, it wasn't feasible anymore, so I needed to like reroute like whatever it was that I was doing, and then it just came about that like God was just kind of like giving me these confirmations to become an image consultant, to give what I learned to other people.
Yeah. Love it, love it, love it. So for those, if you can kind of explain what you do for those who maybe not know what image consulting is, like if you can do like a little blurb what that looks like on a corporate level and then on like an individual level.
Sure. So on a corporate level, a lot of the 1%, they're involved by the concepts of like old English, old America. They're not really up to date with like the internet, modern day society. systematic racism, they don't understand those things because it's old money. So a person like myself will come in, and I'll do 4 to 6 weeks of training amongst not only the young generation, but like the older parts of the corporation, where like I will teach them what it is to have like the casual Friday, right? Like these are things that are they're simple to us because like we're like everyday's casual for us, but like when we're talking about these people who have been a part of our society for so long and have constructed it to be feasible for people to actually make incomes and live off of, they're not in tune with that stuff, right? Like everything's a number to them. But we live in a society now, thanks to social media, where things are kind of more one-on-one, where we're closer to each other, and we just want to feel comfortable, right? Like it doesn't matter where your background is, or like where you come from, what you do know, what you don't know. It's like we just want comfort. So I teach that, right? I've gone to universities where like I teach students how to like look for job placement, but like based off of appearance. So like I'll have a student who's an artist, you know, they're covered in paint for like 7 years, and they're like, how do I get a job, right? Like, I have green paint on my face for 3 years straight. Like, how do I ever get a job? And I teach them what it means to be appealing to that 1% that will give you that job. So I actually am like the middleman who has them speak to each other and find the value in each other, kind of. And
Love
then
it.
I have like all types of clients. I've had attorneys, I've had parents, like moms who didn't feel sexy for years because they're taking care of their kids, and then all of a sudden, you know, they need someone like me to come in and kind of rearrange their closets on a budget-friendly level, and I'm teaching them how to feel good about themselves again. So, yeah.
I love it. I love it. I learned a lot about your on the individual side through your testimonies, and they're like so good. Like those customers really gave detailed like reviews about their experience with you that like you could like imagine. I think a lot of times when you see customer reviews, you can't really imagine like what either if it's a product or a service that you can't imagine what it would be like if you used it. You just have like a very slim idea of what it could possibly be, but like your customer reviews were so detailed, and like the way that they described how they felt after, I was like, these are so perfect. These are so perfect for like someone to be like, I think I need an image consultant, but I'm not sure. And then you read the review and you're like, yeah, that's exactly what I need. Like
Yeah,
you can see yourself in those situations.
yeah, because I think people think of image as like a thing that's disconnected. Like I can't reach that formality because it's too high or something. Like they don't have like a with it. They think like, well, I don't look like that, so I can't be that, right? And it's like, actually, give me the budget, and I will make you look high. Like, you know, because I have all the connects. Like, it's interesting. One of the experiences that I had that I realized like I was on the right track was, again, it was a mom. She was a mom of 6, and I'm sorry, she's a mom of 4, and it had been 6 years since she had like kind of, you know, just felt good about herself. And we did a whole week's worth of like going shopping, hanging out, talking, counseling, all that. And we were in the dressing room. This was after she got her first haircut in forever that matched her face type, or her bone structure, and then obviously like she had her makeup done as well. But and I like stepped out. I like knocked on the door. I'm like, "Are you okay?" Because it was like a little bit. I didn't hear from her, and she was just like, she's like, "Oh, I'm fine." And I was like, you know, so I felt weird. So I kind of like intruded a little bit, like just to see if she was okay. And she was crying, and I was like, wrong? Did I do something? And she's like, no, like she's like, I feel hot.
Here. Yes, it's so easy to lose yourself, whether it's being a mom or just being lost in work. Like, it's so easy to lose yourself. So easy. And it's something to feel good in the clothes that you wear, translate into feeling good in your own skin.
Yeah, for
Like,
men,
value.
we don't realize that men need it too. Because we're like, we think beauty has everything to do with women, but like men too, like come on, men want to feel that too, but we're constantly like just assuming that men don't think about that stuff, but they do. They want to feel confident, right? Like, I think it's harder for men too because a lot of the times the man is the head of the household, so he has to be that presentation. He has to, like that ideal factor of like a woman being a trophy wife. Well, a man is sometimes the representation of the family outside of the home, right? So like, what does that look like? And it's not all about image, right? Like, I don't want to sound like naive, or I don't want to make it sound like it's all about what you look like to get what you want, but there is some sort of connection to how you feel with how you appear, right? Like, you can tell the difference from someone who is depressed or sad or stricken by what they appear to be. So, that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I'm not only working with corporations, but I also work with individuals, both men and women, because it's important for everyone to feel good about themselves.
So when was Instead founded? When did you officially start it?
I started my company in 2016.
So since then, could you share at least one of the biggest obstacles you can think of when you think about being an entrepreneur?
Oh God, just one?
We got an hour. IG only gives us an hour.
All right. Okay. All right. I guess. So my obstacles have more to do with my personality than they do anything else. Because I'm such an artist that I'm very introverted. Like, I just jumped on social media last year, by the way. Like, for the first time, I was like, fuck it, let's do it. Like, let's ride this wave. Like, I studied it, though, first, right? Because I'm, like, that person who's like, I want to see what it does to people's lives before it fucks up mine, right? Like, so I, like, most of my issues have more to do with, like, my personality. So, like, I'm mostly an introvert, so I would say, like, hiring people is probably an issue for me because I like to maybe be in control of everything. Right? Like, I want my clients to feel the same essence that they feel with me, that they would feel with, like, my assistant. So it actually took me 4 years before I found my personal assistant. She's, like, in South Dakota. It's, like, a whole other world, but she fits. I don't know how this happened, but it took me 4 years to find someone who was just so interested in the craft itself that I feel comfortable stepping away, right? It's like, as an entrepreneur, at some point you have to grow, right? Like, as a company, you have to grow and you have to let go, right? But you have to find those avenues. Like, for both of you, like, you're a team, so, like, I'm sure what one doesn't, the other one does, right? So you're able to kind of, like, mesh that in between and, like, build on that. So that's where I'm at. Like, that was my biggest struggle, was, like, finding that team that I can be like, okay, I have a new client coming in. Like, for example, my assistant, like, I would have never done this 5 years ago. Never. But my assistant, I just was like, oh, hey, we have a client in Japan. Like, reach out to them. And she's like, all right. I would have never, 5 years ago, I would have been like, no thank you, I'll handle it, I got it from here, everyone get out of the way. Like, because you don't, so that's my biggest thing as an entrepreneur is like allowing the growth and then like entrusting people to kind of be in those positions that represent my company.
Yeah.
So in having those issues, well, before, like you were just kind of like, I want to take care of it myself, and then you mentioned already that social media was kind of something new to you. What avenues did you have that enabled you to grow the way you did, like from the beginning? Um, a lot of people utilize social media to kind of grow, whereas you just kind of did it recently. So, like, how did your journey kind of go in the growth process?
Um, Panic attacks? No, I'm just kidding. Social media is hard. Like people think it's like easy, but it's really hard because you have to be transparent, right? And I'm kind of like a tough cookie, right? Like you're either gonna love me or you're really not. Right? There's like no in between. So either you get who I am as a person or you don't. And I understood that when I was studying social media. Like I studied social media for 10 years because I'm very introverted. Number two, I have to be 100% all around my company. Like I can't have too many people involved unless I know what's happening, right? And social media allows people you don't know, right? An opinion
Oh, yeah.
or to strategically misplace everything you worked hard for if you're not paying attention to what you're putting out there, right? So I, good or bad, I formulated a plan, right? Like I'm just gonna go out there and I'm just gonna be transparent and share my life on my terms, right? So the journey was pretty easy because I had a bunch of friends who were already on social media. A lot of family was already on social media. A lot of people who already liked my work. A lot of clients were already on social media, so it was pretty easy to kind of connect with everyone. I've had people who didn't like it, right? Like who had ill comments, but I don't really
Yeah. So what were your growth strategies pre-social media then? How did you reach new customers? How did you grow?
Networking. I just partied. I went to networking events. I went to restaurants. I went to happy hours. Just I was in model. I was in the fashion world for a while too. So like a lot of my clients already came from that world. Where like it wasn't hard to kind of like maneuver through that because I was already a part of it for 10 years. So a lot of my clients were just people that I had already been.
What would you say to fellow introverts about networking? Because that is the opposite of your personality.
Um, People appreciate shy, right? Like I think like the person who's in the room who's really rambunctious, it's usually looked at as like annoying. Where like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the shy person is actually more appreciated, right? Because it's a genuine standpoint. Like they're not there to talk just to talk. They're there to maneuver through a crowd of human beings when it's meaningful, right? So like through my networking, I've never wasted my life, my time, my voice, my speech, anything because I just wanted to have air come out of my mouth. Like I literally was very observant and would maneuver through a room, not based off of like what I could get out of the next person, but literally felt led to that person. And it's interesting because each time that occurred, I felt like I was gaining someone who needed to meet me, right? Like needed to have me in their lives or me have them in my lives because I actually observed what was going on more so than like force myself to like, because a lot of people are more concerned about being famous than they are sharing their talent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we're all talented in our own way, so it's like, it's ridiculous to think that you can force yourself on people. It's like, God's gonna direct you where you need to be. You don't need to do too much, you know? So, I guess that's my message,
I would definitely say that that's great advice because she knows, like, if I ever go places and there's like people that are like that, I'm like, that person's a talker. Can't stand it. Like,
He
you
doesn't
just
like the
get those
talkers.
people. I'm just like, nah, it's just they're a talker. They're a talker.
For sure. I'm the social butterfly and he's the observer. And then we kind of meet somewhere in the middle.
yeah.
You go look and be like, so what do you think about them? Not so sure.
It's weird because I
Um,
both too, so I can do both, but I prefer like, observant. It's weird.
your speaking engagements. What was the first one?
My first speaking engagement?
Yeah.
Oh god. Probably Temple. I spoke at Temple a few times. That was like weird. It's weird because sometimes when you're called to do things, you don't realize why exactly. You just do it, right? Like you're just like, okay,
Yeah.
God, what is it that you want me to do? And God just like open that mouth and just let it out. And I'm like, are you sure? Because it's gotten me beat up in the past. Like, you know what I'm saying? Gotten a lot of this mouth. Never beat up, just into a lot of fights. But it's like, work, because I've gotten in trouble for this, you know? And God's like, nah, I want you to do it. Like, this is the time, just do it. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do it. And it just seems like every time I talk, I'm transparent enough that people understand me. And they're just like, yeah, come again, right? Like, again. And I'm like, all right.
In preparation for your speaking engagement, what do you tell? Because I feel like we're all multi-layers, and while we can put labels, like you said, you're an introvert, there's part of you that puts the introvert to the side for a second to go out on a stage in front of a bunch of people, to be transparent, to be yourself, to give part of yourself to that audience. So, like, what is the process for someone who feels called to do something that involves being in front of people, even if it's just another person, right? When you're an introvert, other people, like, interactions are not your normal comfort zone. So what are some things that you prepare or tell yourself, or, I don't know, breath work or meditation, whatever, to be in front of this audience and just give of yourself?
Okay, so that's hard, right? Because, like,
For sure.
it's so difficult to say. Like, I can't say what will work for another person, but I kind of know what works for me. Like, I've always been, like, a brave person, if that makes any sense. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
um, so my father was a professional fighter, and my mother, she was very, like, uh, eccentric, like, so I always had that sense of bravery. Like, despite the fact that I was, like, observant of what was happening, when it was my time, like, I was very brave in that, right? Like, I stepped into that. The issue that I can say that a lot of people may feel when they're put on the spot or, like, put into those positions of bravery is, like, anxiety, right? Like, it's like anxiety-driven circumstance where you're, like, even Beyonce, like, I think I read or maybe heard her say once that, like, that adrenaline that she feels right before she gets on stage, like, she still feels it. Like, she still feels those butterflies. I feel that too, but I like it, right? Like, it's very strange, right? Like, I like that because it almost makes me feel like I'm I. It almost makes me feel like I'm about to do something that I should be doing, right? So I see it more as a sign than something, a sign for good than a sign for bad. And I think that a lot of the times, especially in society, we like to label things, right? Like, oh, you're overwhelmed, it's a bad word. Oh, you have anxiety, that's a bad word. Oh, you're depressed, that's so bad. Like, oh, you're upset, that's so bad. There's so many negative connotations with like how you feel, right? Versus like saying, okay, I have butterflies in my stomach. I'm about to speak in front of a room full of people. Why is that a negative thing? I'm excited, right? Like I feel good about that. So I think it's more about processing your thoughts and then like relabeling like what it is that you feel. Like you should be empowered to like speak on behalf of yourself, right? Like
Yeah.
society shouldn't be the one labeling what your feelings are, because we have so many people who are saying like, oh, I have anxiety, oh, I have PTSD, oh, I have all these things. And it's like, who told you that? Exactly. You know what I mean? Because if that same concept, like even the greatest of greats, like the greatest artists, the greatest musicians, like they too had concepts that were created around their behaviors, but they were great. They didn't see those things, right? Like none of those things mattered to them. They went about who they were and they projected and they released and they purged into the world. Like it was only society who tried to like hinder them to their concepts. I don't know.
Yeah. That's so true. That's
Yeah.
so true.
Definitely. You speak about art a lot. You're very artistic in nature, and not just in modeling, right? Like you have posted about your paintings and doing that. And so could you talk a little bit about painting and what it does for you and how you feel?
Yeah. So painting actually saved my life, which is really interesting. Because I was put in a situation, like we talked about this, I'm an introvert, not because society says I am, but because I studied the concept and I really am, right? Right? But painting was my voice when I didn't have one. So I actually began painting as a way to, it was a cry for help, um, to myself, if that makes any sense. So like my body was purging an emotion that I had yet to identify. And once I saw it on a canvas, I realized I was speaking something that needed to be heard, right? So then I realized, okay, something's up, right? Because sometimes we get so caught up in like everyday, like working, school, taking care of the family, catering to our loved ones, catering to our spouses, that we don't realize that there's something in us that is incomplete, needs healing, something. But I knew I was called to paint and sketch. But I started realizing that that artwork was actually delivering a message that I needed to focus on. So I started sketching an eye, and I'm like, what is this? Like, what does this mean? And it then um, processed the memory for me of a time when my mother used to sketch eyes when I was a child. And then I realized, like, okay, what does this mean? So then it opened a conversation for me and my mother that created healing. And then from there, I Googled the concepts, and it just like opened a whole new door for me. And I was like, okay, I just need to reprogram my whole life right now. All this is bullshit. Like, and that's when I dived into my business, because it literally was me telling myself, you need to open your eyes. Like, you're killing yourself in the corporate world trying to be a slave to the 1%. That's not who you are. Like, you're literally calling yourself to yourself. Like, I don't know. That's just like, it was weird.
That's crazy. This past weekend, I the boys got like these succulents that you can paint, like it comes with its own plant safe paint. And I have been telling myself for some time, like, I just want to start painting. Like, I'm not an artist. I don't know anything about painting or colors or different types of brushes. I was like, but I just want to start painting, like, just like doodle painting or whatever you want to call it. So I finally did it this weekend. And it felt so good. It felt like we sat outside, which made it even better. The weather was like so perfect. It wasn't hot, it wasn't cold. It was like this perfect weather. The boys are just enjoying being outside. I'm enjoying the fresh air, and it was like so relaxing. And I didn't know, like I've been telling myself this for months, like you need to do this, you should do this, like you'll probably really like it. And I finally got to do it on Saturday, and it's so crazy that I got to do it on the Saturday before we're having this conversation of like, yeah, like this, like something's gonna come out of this. I don't know what and I don't know when, but like keep doing it because something's gonna come out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I initially started drawing an eye because I figured it was the easiest thing, and then I transitioned into like abstract art, which it was just a
Mhm.
bunch of paint on a canvas, which really spoke about the time period I was in, right? Like it was just a mess, right? Like that's what I created on a canvas, but like it was colorful, right? Because there was so much growing and healing that was happening. And then I swear to God, just recently, I painted my first like self portrait. I don't know how to paint. Dude, I don't know how to paint. This is only like a year and a half in the making of like throwing paint on a canvas. And all of a sudden, I'm now creating something that is what society would consider meaningful. But to me, it's like, no, it's the transition of it's the growth, right? Like,
Right.
you
Right.
go in what you think is normal to like what you're feeling, and then you actually bring it together. It's like a self portrait. It's amazing. It's really cool. It's weird.
Are you gonna share it?
What?
Are you gonna share it?
Remind me. Should I share it?
Why not?
Oh, okay. I'll do that.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll do it. All right, but so I have to. I think it's stop. Is it stop? No. All
I'm
right.
so sorry.
So there's a lot of things involved with it too. So, okay, so it's interesting because I had to study how to create the hair. You see all the curly hair? Isn't
Yeah. There's so much detail.
that crazy though?
Oh my gosh, I love it.
And then it has like a crown too, which where the fuck did that come from? Because like I'm not,
Wow. 'Cause you're a queen.
but I'm saying like, isn't that weird though? Like,
It is so beautiful.
yeah, it's weird.
The
Mine,
details
I
in it
started
are crazy.
like splashing paint on a canvas. Like, there was no concept behind it. It was just like, and then it evolved.
Right, right.
I guess that's a testimony to other people too. It's like, stop worrying about like the details of it all. Just do it and see where it goes.
Yeah. Stop worrying about being perfect.
I thought about that.
That prevents people a lot. Like if
Yeah.
they can't get something the way that they want it to. So I know it's even stopped me plenty of times before, where it's just like, you know what? I'm not even gonna do it. Like you just kind of get discouraged because it doesn't look the way that you want it to look. But then it's just like if you just kind of went through with it, it would end up getting there. You don't
Right.
realize it. You're just so focused on the starting stages, and everything's not always pretty in the very beginning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, people I think
Okay.
about what others think or like an expectation that they have to meet, and it's like, who cares? Like some of my earliest paintings, I used to grab like the jar of paint and just be like,
Oh
I
my
didn't.
gosh, that sounds so fun.
It's more fun when you do that shit. Like, who was it? Pollock, the artist. Pollock. I think his last name was Pollock. They have this entire documentary on him, and that's what
Okay.
he did. Like create. I'm not sure what the concepts were, but he just made a mess, and it was beautiful. People loved it. Like
Yeah.
no one cared about it looking a certain way. He just expressed himself. So
Yeah. ultimately, I think as human beings, we're all just messy, right? Like we want to have this polished, neat, put together thing, but it's essentially impossible because we're so complicated and we have emotions that are not logical, and we're trying to sort things out, and things, we want things to go according to plan, but we're just like beautiful messes if we allow it to be. Now there's people that are hot messes or disasters, okay? But if you like, I think that if you can just accept that every single person is imperfect, every single person has encountered obstacles and life doesn't go as planned, like there's just beauty in the mess.
Yeah. And that's the best part about what I do is like I capture that. Like I capture that essence of that person, because some people forget, like everyone is so different and unique and beautiful or handsome or talented or artistic, and they don't see it. Like, you ever been in the presence of someone and you just see it? Like, you see it in them, but they don't see it in themselves. Like, I'm that person that's like, I see it and I'm gonna bring it forward. And you're gonna love me for the rest of your days because I helped you meet your purpose, right? But I'm not gonna like force it on you, right? Like, we have corporate America that does that every day, where they force purpose on people that is fucking ridiculous, right? Like, or whatever we call social media these days, talent, gestures. I don't know. They want to force the concept of perfection on people when it's not even who they are. Everyone wants to be like a mime or a jester on Instagram or social media. It's like not everyone is willing to smut themselves for their talent, right? So I appreciate the uniqueness of each person, and I like to bring it out in them, right? Like, I like to say, like, actually, no, you don't have to be like that. You have to be like you, right? And here's what that looks like. In case you forgot, like, I'm going to bring it out of you, like, again. Or maybe you never saw it, but I do, right?
Yeah. What are some ways, and I know this is probably a multi-layered, complicated question, but if you could, what are some ways that you bring that out of someone who doesn't see it at all? Like, there are some people.
I was about to ask that same question, because there's some people that just generally aren't really trying to hear it.
Some people have a glimpse. They have a little bit. They see it a little bit, but they're kind of like tiptoeing around it. They're not sure. And then there are the people that don't see it at all, that you can tell them all the amazing things about them and they don't believe you.
Yeah. So I'm not a therapist, right? So like typically my clients, when they come to me, they know where they're at, right? Like I'm usually my clients are in projects. However, I do come encounter with people who it's a deep rooted issue, but most of the time when I come and connect with my clients, it's already on the surface, right? So that's why I come in as the image consultant. But yeah, I think that sometimes it's okay to let go. Like we talked about this earlier, it's okay to allow people to grow. Like, you can walk alongside them. You don't always have to be the person blocking them or trying to lead the way, right? Like, you have to decipher for yourself that, right? Like, you can't save everyone, right? Like, you can either walk alongside someone, whether it's a friend or a family member, but sometimes the journey is solely for that person. It's not something that you can always do yourself, right? So, I had to learn that the hard way. It's not easy.
We'll do that next.
Services that you provide with Instead, because you have other services on your site aside from the image consulting, so like your subscription services to the Tuesday Trends.
Yeah, so I realized, like, along my path that not everyone can afford my services. Like, I have my consultations, I have the personal shopping, I have the closet editing, but I realized over the years that I'm like, you can't, not everyone can afford the service, but they should have access to something similar, right? Or they should have some access to something that inspires them. So I've met such incredible people on my journey, like both of you, like where I'm able to share that, right? Like share our stories or share our experiences with each other for other people, right? Like there's going to be someone tonight who's going to be inspired by us. So I decided to create a blog where I interview or I write about like people, whether they're in Philadelphia or across the world, that like are in the fashion industry, or they are influencers, or they understand the concept of art and what the purpose of that. Because think about COVID, for example, right? COVID literally structured us to be alone. Even if we're together with our families, right? Like, it somehow structured us to be alone, like solely by ourselves with no access to anything except what? What was the beauty in that? Right? Like, what was the most beautiful thing that could come of that? Or what were some of the most beautiful things that we can look forward to? And it was the beauty of color, the beauty of art, the beauty of understanding, the beauty of listening, the beauty of that, what you can see with your eyes, right? Like, it made us appreciate like the world around us. And so that's kind of like what my blog does. It engulfs it engulfs the essence of like why people do what they do. Like, why do they even exist, right? Like, what are you bringing to the table other than you're a hot person? Like, who gives a fuck about that? Like, what do you bring to the table? And it's like, I have so many people in my, who are my friends, you know, people that I grew up with that, like, are influencers, artists, people who have a story just like you and I, where, like, they can say, like, we had these hardships, we had times in our lives where we maybe didn't believe in ourselves all the time, and then we wanted to give back to other people. So that's what I share with people, like, is the Tuesday Trends at 2 o'clock, where it's a new story about someone across the world that had a similar story to what we all experienced, but wants to share it on a platform that is feasible, that we can touch, right? Because, like, my platform is Philadelphia, right? Like, who can say that? People, when you think of, like, oh, you're interviewing world-renowned artists, you're thinking of, like, this highly, like, successful company. I'm not saying that I'm not successful, but I'm saying, like, this untouched part of the world where I'm bringing it to your fingertips. You know what I mean? For you to be inspired by that.
How are you selecting your Tuesday trends? Like, is there a certain thing, or is there a schedule, or is there something that leads you to those people?
Yeah, I mean, it's just people I've met over the years, people that I'm being led to, friends, um, people that I'm inspired by. But for whatever reason, it's never some. It's I'm always led to that person. Like, I'm never like searching for that person. It just feels like that person we connect somehow, right? Like,
Yeah.
and then it makes sense. It's like, oh yes, I gotta write about you, right? And then they're like,
Yeah.
we've been waiting this whole fucking time for you to write about me. And I'm like, oh, that's right. I forgot you were like my best friend. It's like, because I don't like to like make people feel uncomfortable, right? Like, oh, that's the thing about business too. It's like, you know, people are not like they try to X out the concept of money. It's like, we have to understand that money does exist, right? Like, I'm not going to sit here and interview someone who could potentially influence hundreds, thousands of people, and then they leave with nothing. That's another niche or glitch in the artist community. It's like, people don't know their worth. So I always try to make it so that everyone involved feels comfortable with what they're giving, right?
Yeah.
Business behind it.
Right. That's so, when you said that, they come to you, it's kind of like, when we decided to do this whole Monday motivation chat, it was an idea, and we were like, oh, it has to be Pat, right? Like he's known Pat for so many years. Pat has been doing Pat TV for quite a while now. And it was just like this natural fit for him to be the first one. And then your birthday came around, you were promoting the book, and we were both like, well, who's gonna be the second one? And we were like, Janet, like it was just like there, it was flowing so perfectly. Like every person who's coming up, like there's no forcing it, there's no searching, right? It's just like flowing so naturally. And it's so beautiful. And like everything you're saying, I'm like, confirmation, confirmation. It literally every time I talk to you, it's just confirmation.
Since the beginning. It's just,
Yes.
anyway,
Yes.
I remember too, because like we were at the studio space. For people who don't know, we were at the studio space that was like, it was for entrepreneurs, and we kind of were just like getting our feet wet. And I just remember like me and Julie were like the only people in the room, right?
What's his name?
But
The
he was
owner of Dream.
Brandon, but like he was kind of,
Brandon was there. It was just the three of us, nobody else.
yeah, but he was kind of like manning the door in like his own world and like on the
Yeah,
phone or something. But it was like
right.
you and I were like, we kind of like, I don't know, it was just so amazing. Like we kind of were just like the only two entrepreneurs, Latina, you know, left in a room, just kind of like communicating to each other about our dreams, right? And then
Right,
like the essence of that came about. It was just like, well, okay.
right, right. It's so crazy. And I think that once there's, it's oddly that you have this introvert extrovert part of you, because the part of you that wants control has to let go in order to go with that flow, right? And so we're going into this season like going full on kill the day, starting these chats, doing everything we're doing right now is literally letting go of control and knowing like this idea that we have is fully supported by our passion to help people, motivate people, inspire people, and also be inspired, like get something in return that you can't put a price on that. And so we're completely just like, these are ideas. We're going to go with the flow and we're going to see what happens. Maybe people show up, maybe they don't. Maybe we ask people to join our chat and maybe they'll say no. We don't know, but we're just kind of going with the flow, letting go of control. And it has been so far like such a beautiful journey, and just like talking to you and hearing your story is like, yeah, that's basically what you got to do. Like you just got to let go and go with the flow and see like where the energy takes you. It's just like you're gonna be like a magnet, like every person or every new opportunity, it'll just like stick without effort.
It's like the word no, right? Like, how do we know that's a negative connotation?
Right.
Because we were taught that, right? Like, if you like change your thought process and say, oh, you said no. Like, okay, so let's decipher, right? Like, we're not talking danger, right? Like, if someone says don't touch the electrical cord because it might kill you, we're not talking that, right? We're
Are
talking
you sure?
we're talking more like exclude the dangerous parts of life. But like, for example, I had so many people when like I was really interested in pursuing like anything. People just because they wanted to or because they could, they would just say no. I'm like, why? You know, like why would you say that? And it's because I said no. And I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? No, why? Like, what do you mean no? Like, the fuck does that mean? Like, I got what it takes. Like, why the fuck are you telling me no? Because you can. Like, so I had to learn to love the word no, but like also like understand personality, right? Like, you have to like interpret people's personalities. Like, some people really mean no, like danger. Like, don't go back there. Like, you know, something might happen to you. That's why I'm here to tell you no. And some people are just like, they're fuck faces, and you gotta just like kick them in the mouth and like get rid of them, right? But not like